On the investigation of Congressman Matt Gaetz is so lurid, it's hard to believe he still holds a position of public trust. In fact, his communications director resigned today in the wake of the latest revelations. People close to the federal probe tell the New York Times that investigators are scrutinizing Gaetz's involvement with multiple women who were recruited online for sex and received cash payments. Those women were reportedly procured by Gaetz's associate, Joel Greenberg, the former Florida tax collector who's now facing almost 36 criminal charges, ranging from the production of fake IDs and identity theft to sex trafficking a child. The Times reports that Greenberg recruited the women through websites that connect people who go on dates in exchange for gifts, fine dining, travel, and allowances. People with knowledge of the encounter say Greenberg then introduced the women to Mr. Gaetz, who also had sex with them. The story also details how Gaetz and Greenberg would pay the women, noting that the women themselves even told friends the payments were indeed for sex. However, Gaetz is once again denying the conduct under investigation. In a statement to NBC News, his lawyer said Matt Gaetz has never paid for sex and refutes all of the disgusting allegations completely, unquote. This comes on top of the news this week that investigators are probing whether Gaetz had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl, which he denies. Now, two people with the investigation have told the Times that the sex trafficking count against Mr. Greenberg involved the same girl. The revelations are not only damning on their face, but they link Gaetz even closer to Greenberg, who denies the charges against him and is currently in jail pending trial. According to the Daily Beast, text messages from former employees at Greenberg's tax office helped lead investigators to Gaetz. Additionally, the Daily Beast acquired a strange voicemail that portrays their apparent chummy relationship. It's a message they left for Florida State Representative Anna Eskamani in 2019, one of many contacts which she described as weird.
My dear Anna, this is your favorite tax collector. I'm up in the Panhandle with your favorite U.S. Congressman, Mr. Gaetz.
Hi, Anna.
And we were just chatting about you and talking about your lovely qualities. And
we think you're the future of the Democratic Party in Florida.
Well, see, I know you're the future of it, so there's no thinking involved. Anyway, if you get this and you feel like chatting, give me a shout back.
Representative Eskamani is now calling on Congressman Gaetz to resign in the wake of the Times reporting. And I'm joined now by Florida State Representative Anna Eskamani and Cynthia Oxney, former federal prosecutor. Representative Eskamani, I must start with you on this weird, rather creepy voicemail. What did you take the purpose of that voicemail to be?
Well, thank you so much, Joy, for having me. Honestly, when I saw my phone ringing and he was calling, I didn't pick up because we didn't have that type of relationship to expect a phone call. And I was even more surprised to listen to the voicemail and hear not only his voice, but Congressman Matt Gaetz' voice as well. So for me, I mean, it seemed like they wanted to try to get closer to me, try to have some sort of chummy conversation with me, which, again, I really do draw the line between personal and professional, especially when it comes to other elected officials.
I hate to be, I feel like this whole thing, I need a shower just having read the intro to this, but I'm sorry to have to ask you this on national television, but did you get the sense, you're a Democrat, right? You're not a member of,
Correct.
Okay. Did you get the sense that Mr. Greenberg wanted to date you? Did this seem like a sort of romantic outreach in sort of the college sophomore level? Did it seem like they wanted to go out with, what did you think they wanted from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an uncomfortable question, but I think it's an important one when it comes to the experiences of many women in politics, is that we're constantly objectified. We're constantly not seen as valid contributors to policy, but instead as objects of pleasure and as something to look at versus to respect. And so, yes, I absolutely got the feeling that it was very much, you know, an attempt at an intimate conversation. Even the notion of your lovely qualities, that alone was very cringeworthy for me.
The last question on this line, and then I will move on, I promise. Do you worry, in light of what we've now learned about Matt Gaetz and Mr. Greenberg and what they were up to, and things like allegations from CNN that Gaetz would show off pictures to fellow lawmakers of women he nude women that he claims that he had slept with. Quote, it was a point of pride, one of the sources said of Gaetz. And also that Mr. Greenberg was trafficking women and attempting to get them to have sex with him and maybe the congressman for money. When you look back on it, do you worry that they were trying to lure you into something that would have been along those lines, the trafficking world lines?
I think it's a very valid question and a very valid concern. I mean, these are the signs of trying to groom people to do what you want them to do. And when I look back at my entire engagement with Mr. Greenberg over the past, I would say maybe 3-4 years, I always try to keep a distance between us, but there was a lot of just pushy behavior, coercive behavior, attempting to make a conversation go into more intimate direction than I would want it to go. And so there definitely were signs of that. And again, I think it's so important that women, especially women in politics, share their stories, because unfortunately for me, it's just another day of being a woman in politics.
Yeah, and I just want to let our audience know, Cynthia, we're having a little bit of trouble with her shot right now. We're going to try to get her back. But I guess, may I ask, and I normally would never ask this question. It's a question I just generally don't ask, but how old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
I am a young but feeling very old 30-year-old.
Okay, but you're not in the right. Okay, so I just wanted I'm just checking that because of the sort of line of sort of reasoning around what they were doing. Did you at any point suspect that Mr. Greenberg was engaged in any kind of illegal activity? Did he strike you as somebody? I'll just leave it there. Did you ever suspect that he was engaged in any kind of illegal activity? He's accused of a lot of different varieties of illegal activity. Did you ever suspect that?
It's a great question. I first interacted with him because he had posted comments on his Facebook page that were Islamophobic in nature. So many members of the Central Florida community, the Muslim-led community, called him out for it. They invited me to join the space, and I also called him out for it. And then he attacked me on Twitter, threatening me politically, and then turned around and apologized and was seeking some sort of support from me. So it was a very just really difficult dynamic, and trying to maintain some sense of professionalism and kindness while also realizing that this person is just kind of all over the place. He doesn't really have a lot of stability. And I think the rest of it speaks to the fact that he was engaged in some pretty ridiculous and inappropriate behavior. But I don't think any of us could have expected it to be this bad.
Yeah, no, I was saddened when I read the line in the Daily Beast piece that you were quoted saying that you sort of try to deal with it so that you're not like thrown in as the B word, which is a thing I think a lot of women in public life recognize. Okay, Cynthia, we've got you back. Walk us through, because this is a really gross story, but I know that you are a very experienced sex crimes prosecutor. If you were looking at this case, just looking at it from your prosecutorial eye, does it appear to you that Mr. Gaetz might have been a customer of whatever it is Mr. Greenberg was doing? Or where would you start if you were investigating this case?
Well, I think where it's going is that my guess would be is that Greenberg, they're trying to get him to flip against Gaetz. I mean, he has 33 or something charges against him. He's in big trouble, and he obviously knows a lot about Gaetz. And, there's a temptation in the press for us to kind of almost enjoy the demise of Gaetz because he's such a creepy, miserable, insufferable human being. But recognize we're talking about girls here. We're talking about this is a criminal investigation. This is not a sex scandal in the classic D.C. way. I think he's looking at sex trafficking. He may be looking at pornography charges. He may be looking, it's not going to surprise me if there aren't campaign finance charges, drug charges. So he has a very serious problem. My guess is that will begin with a role by his friend Greenberg.
Let me read a little bit from the New York Times piece. In some cases, Mr. Gaetz asked women to help find others who might be interested in having sex with him and his friends, according to two people familiar with those conversations. Some of the men and women took ecstasy, an illegal mood-altering drug, before having sex, including Mr. Gaetz. Two people familiar with the encounters said. Is that what you mean? Because that is gross, but is that also trafficking?
Well, yeah. Well, it may or may not. It certainly is a drug crime, right? It's a Schedule I drug. If they're going across state lines and they're under 18 and they're getting something of value, it's a trafficking crime. If they're going across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, it's a different crime. If he's using campaign money to pay for it, it's a different crime. So there's a whole host of crimes But I guess it doesn't really surprise anyone that you'd have to really take drugs to have sex with Matt Gaetz.
I mean, yeah, that's not going to shock anyone.